All right, welcome back to another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Cathy Cannon, aka Cannon's Fodder. And you know, we always cover the most important news stories, most important stories of the day on this podcast. And we have to lead off with the story of the 21st century. That what exactly happened to Kate Middleton? I don't know. I don't know if our loyal listeners know, but Cathy Cannon is a royal family, is a royal pain in the ass, but is also a royal family sort of conspiracy theorist. She is a Brit that is not a fan of the royals. But anyway, so what's going on, Cathy? So you had a conspiracy theory which you spoke about on another podcast, which you can plug in a minute. So what's going on actually with Kate Middleton, though? She has cancer. She is alive, I guess.
She's alive and has cancer, except maybe. I don't know. Okay, so with the Royals, this is the only place I wear a tinfoil hat. I will own it. I 100% do. So I went on the Left Wing podcast with TJ Whitehouse and I'm sorry, TJ Whitehead. I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry. And it's his handle is the power is taken, not given. And then John Cooper is Counterpoint Politics, both on TikTok. So I opened the story, like I said in the podcast, kind of like we do, shoot the shit at first. And I was like telling them about my conspiracies, and neither of them had really heard. Like they both knew she was like something was up with her, but they're like, I kind of don't care because it's the royal family. I was like, good, one, because we hate the royal family. But I took them through the whole conspiracy about the last time there was a King Charles, the monarchy fell, and Camilla is like the descendant of King Charles II's illegitimate children, and like the Diana's, like all of it. And I basically had told them that I was convinced. We did. Like we spent 20 minutes me going through royal conspiracies. It was quite the adventure.
Good for them for letting you just run with that on their show.
I think look, I'm a pretty good storyteller. For those of you who don't know, I know how to hold attention. So yeah, they were both just like both fascinated and horrified at the same time. But I had them both.
What did we do inviting this bitch on our show?
I know, seriously. I had them both like convinced, like dead to rights, right, that William had beat Kate badly enough that she was rushed to the hospital and had like emergency surgery, and that there were complications for the surgery, and that she died, and that the royal family was trying to cover it up. And they had Harry come over for like an impromptu meeting to see if he would be willing to take back his royal powers if they had to put William away for murdering Kate, all of this stuff. And then I was like, and they're like, but why would they do that? I was like, well, remember, her ex-boyfriend who dated her sister just mysteriously shot himself in the head, right? So I had all of this. And
I didn't know that. Her ex-boyfriend killed himself?
Yeah, once she was allegedly having an affair with. So there's like rumors that she was having an affair with her sister's ex-boyfriend, and then that sister's ex-boyfriend commits suicide, right? So I was, so of course, like I took the conspiracy all the way to its end, and like literally the next day, I was until I see proof of my.
You wanted so badly for that to be true.
I honestly didn't. I don't want, like, I wasn't wishing the woman dead. I was just like convinced. I had convinced myself that the royals were once again evil, and that the Princess of Wales will like become like the defense of the dark arts position in the royal family, right? Just like
just
never to be queen. Yeah, I had just.
Well, she wasn't murdered. She just released a video. Unless it was a doctored video, like someone in your family said.
Yeah, like it could be a green screen. And then he sent me like a Twitter account of somebody had like superimposed Meghan Markle's face over Kate Middleton's face, which I thought it was hilarious just because they hate each other, that kind of thing.
Deep fakes are good. You can still spot them though. They're not like impossible to spot a deep fake. Like if somebody tried to fake a Kate Middleton, I'm pretty sure that they would figure it out.
Well, that's what he was doing. He was like, look, the ring is moving on each finger, and the trees aren't blowing in the background. I was like, all right. Like I thought I was tinfoil.
People get all into this stuff, man. Holy hell.
We don't trust the royals is really all it is. I'm just to abolish the monarchy.
I guess she has cancer. She's going into chemo. Was very, spoke very well of her husband, Prince William, which I totally believe that he's cheating on her. I mean, I don't really think that that's much of a conspiracy. But, killing her would be a little much. I'm not sure.
I had a moment. What do you want from me? I had a moment.
I don't even want to get into the Diana stuff because I know you got some kooky stuff on Princess Diana too. But that's all.
Oh no, they just
maybe that's a deep dive.
Yeah, they killed her 100%. I'll die on that hill. They killed her. Canada and her
We'll
royal
do it. We'll do a
conspiracy.
conspiracy theory deep dive, and you could go into the
Oh my
dynasty.
god. I just get my tinfoil hat out. Let me hang on. It'll be fine.
Uh,
But yeah,
so
so she has cancer.
yeah.
Whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
Well,
I
she
feel like
has
an
cancer.
asshole.
The king has cancer. Various
Well,
various
okay.
reports about Charles like not doing very well, to be honest with you. So I don't
Oh,
know.
really? Because I had
Yeah.
heard the conspiracy was that Charles was pretending he had cancer to cover Kate's cancer. But again, I just don't trust the royals. Wait, where did you hear he
Oh,
wasn't doing well?
I don't know. I get these random like I'm on like every instant news feed app in the world,
Uh,
and some of them are legit and some of them aren't. But I've seen several stories about
mm,
how like he's still working. I mean, he's still like doing duties and stuff, but just that it's becoming harder and harder for him because his health is deteriorating. But yeah.
I think it is hilarious that he waited his whole life to be king for 15 minutes.
Well, if he goes, then William will have an extremely long, you know, uh, ruling time. He'll be king for a very long
I
time.
know.
But yeah,
I told you how I was
yeah.
convinced that the reason Putin invaded Ukraine is because the idea of a king in England, like, just made him so insecure that he's like, I must rebuild my empire.
He's gonna just crown himself czar next.
Seriously, like,
Uh,
there's a psychology to the king of England, right? The world is still misogynist. The queen doesn't scare them, but the king,
it's
telling you.
baffling to me.
I
So
know,
anyway, check
same.
out the Left Wing podcast with TJ Whitehead and John Cooper. Just check those guys out. They're good guys. But check out the episode with
Yeah,
Cathy, because apparently Cathy was a very charming guest on that show.
I know. We're all
Um,
shocked to hear that.
at power is not at power is taken, not given, and at counterpoint politics are their handles. Speaking of Putin, so we had a huge terrorist attack in Moscow.
Mhm.
Scary as hell. Shooting at the Crocus Concert Hall, which is like their Moscow's big like music center, be like Radio City Music Hall. Now it's up to 140 dead, 4 suspects, shooting just indiscriminately into a crowd, throwing Molotov cocktails, huge explosions, caught the building on fire. The building was burning all night long. They've got, I believe, 3 in custody. ISIS-K has claimed responsibility. ISIS-K is basically just an Afghanistan offshoot of ISIS, the original ISIS, which was in Syria. These are the guys that attacked our troops as we were leaving Afghanistan. We weren't actually fighting the Taliban because we had a treaty with the Taliban at that point. We were fighting ISIS-K. Those were the guys that killed our troops, the 13 troops on our way out of Afghanistan. They've also attacked Iran, Kazakhstan. They're just kind of just crisis agents. I mean, these are the Islamic State guys. They just want to kill everybody. So anyway, yeah, big, really sad news out of Moscow. Thoughts, conspiracies, Cathy? Do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, ISIS-K has claimed responsibility. There's really no, I heard it was a false flag operation. It was only days after Putin won re-election. It could have been a thing to like tighten his control over the national security state. I don't know. It just kind of seems like it is ISIS. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Well, like, this is where you'll realize that my conspiracies begin and end with the royal family, because no, I don't
You're
think it
like,
was a
that's
false
the
flag.
only
Like,
conspiracy involves the royals.
right, exactly. Like, that is it. Nothing else. Like, otherwise, we landed on the moon. The world is round. Fuck off, everybody. But the royal family is evil. There you go. That's all I'm giving you. But on this one, like, the funniest thing about this one to me is that, like, ISIS said they did it. America said ISIS did it. Russia said ISIS did it. And the internet's like, no, you know what? It's probably
Yeah.
whatever. It's fine. But the fact that it happened right after Putin's attack, or a re-election, makes the most sense to me, and is why I believe it's ISIS the most.
Yeah,
Because you have
yeah,
to.
that doesn't necessarily have to be like a conspiracy. There could be a legitimate reason for attacking right after his election too. Yeah.
Well, to kind of make a point that if you're going to
Yeah.
keep Putin in power, we're coming after you. Because remember how I made the comparison that Vladimir Putin is doing to Ukraine what George W. Bush did to Iraq, essentially, right? Like, we're going to preemptively attack you, but really we just want your land and your resources, which
Mm-hmm.
was what it was with Iraq. And Putin has spoken outwardly about how he wants to rebuild not just the Soviet Empire, but the former Russian Federation and or the former Russian Empire, right? Like the freaking Romanov era Russian Empire. and the Romanov Russian Empire always had eyes on Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
if Vladimir Putin is just the modern George W. Bush, then the people that hated his imperial ideology
Right.
toward the Middle East are not going to like Putin's imperial ideology toward the Middle East.
Right.
And that kind of makes the most sense to me. That's them sending a message to Russia that if you're just going to be the next superpower trying to conquer everybody's countries, then we're just going to do to you what we did to the last superpower in our backyard trying to take over our country. So to me, that makes the most sense in the world.
Yeah, ISIS again, they're kind of just chaos agents. They kind of just go wherever there's conflict and try to just insert themselves into the conflict. And that's kind of what they were doing in Syria too. That's why they were drawn to Syria and Iraq, is because the situation just fell apart there. It was sort of ripe for them to come in and take over. It's interesting that and again, like it doesn't necessarily help Putin that this attack happened, especially since Putin is supposed to be the strong man, and the only, the excuse he gives for that is that he keeps the Russian people safe. And oh, by the way, they've branded all these like LGBTQ groups as terrorist organizations, and they're going after terrorism. It's they're going after like wokeness as terrorism when they have actual terrorists now attacking their country. So
and that might be
it doesn't
another
make Putin look good necessarily at all.
Well, what really doesn't make him look good is that like U.S. intelligence was actually on top of this. And U.S. intelligence was like, well, and we warned the Russians, like, we don't really have reason to be helping the Russians right now because they're a little bit attacking one of our allies. But U.S. intelligence warns like Americans in Russia, like, don't go to gatherings. We have this intelligence. P.S. Russian government, you might want to like look into this yourself. And Vladimir Putin essentially George W. Bush this one, like, okay, you told me, you covered your ass, I'm going to Crawford. And like
the same way that Bibi, the same way we told Bibi, like, Hamas intends to attack in October in the south of Israel in a major way, and they're like, the Israeli government was like, whatever, bro. Like, it's like, okay. I don't know, a couple of major calls for the American intelligence community that just have definitely came true.
And if you're paying attention, like this, like, oh god, like I don't know. It's probably we made it happen, right? If you remember how George W. and Dick Cheney were all like, terror is just going to grow throughout the world. And now it is. But we made it happen. It was one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. But now we're here dealing with the ramifications of that. And like, it's kind of bad to see terrorist organizations that we couldn't get a handle on now going after countries that we don't get along with, because that makes the world just a more dangerous place.
Well, I don't know. I'm just happy that the CIA is actually getting something right. I mean, the CIA was notoriously wrong about everything for decades. I mean, that's how we flubbed up 9/11. I mean, so maybe they're finally get their shit together. But who knows?
We finally like gear shifted away from destabilizing Latin American countries long enough that we can tell when people are trying to kill us again. So well done, CIA. Well done.
Yeah,
40 years late, but whatever.
the weird thing is that the Putin government, I think ISIS claimed, because if ISIS hadn't claimed responsibility, they would have said it was Ukraine, right? And in the early hours, they were saying what was coming out of the Putin government was that this was somehow Ukraine related. Ukraine immediately came out and said we had nothing to do with it. It doesn't make any sense for your Ukraine attack. Every attack that Ukraine has launched against Russia has been against like a military target or an infrastructure target. They have no reason to just start indiscriminately killing Russian citizens, much less like at a concert hall. They would have to smuggle their guys in. So ISIS almost immediately claimed responsibility, but Putin's government is still trying to like spin that to Ukraine somehow, like, oh, they came from Ukraine, or they were fleeing to Ukraine, or the weapon, like I saw today that the weapons were shipped in from Ukraine. So still trying to like build this case that Ukraine is responsible for this, which, if they can get the Russian public on that, believing that, then that's just Putin's trying to get a green light to just go in and like nuke Ukraine over something like this,
Probably. But what's interesting is that the Hamas attack in Israel was at an outdoor concert festival, and the attack in Moscow was a concert hall. So don't go to concerts. That sounds scary.
Stay away from concerts. Is that what our intelligence said in the Israeli thing too? Stay away from concerts and large events.
Concerts and large gatherings, yeah. Like they were that on it, So
right.
Who
the
knew
Hamas
Biden's
one,
government was good at intelligence? What?
we would have
Sorry.
more on Hamas probably than we would on ISIS-K. I mean, I think we actually we have contacts in Hamas. I don't know that we know anybody in ISIS-K, but yeah.
Well, you don't
Crazy.
know who we know, because that's kind of the point, is that we're not supposed to know who we know, because
Right, exactly.
Espionage, sort of the whole point of it.
Espionage. Anyway, sad for Russia.
Yeah, it was
Again,
really
we don't have a
sad.
problem with Russians. We just don't like their government.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to see how they're trying to spin this to say that that Ukraine was involved. But of course they would. Of course they would.
Well, we tried to spin 9/11 to say Iraq was involved.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Who are we to talk, in all honesty?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Hot kettle
exactly.
kind of situation.
But I mean, that would have made sense for a false flag. Is like you'd some massive bomb attack in Moscow that they planned and then blame it on Ukraine or something like that.
Yeah, and that's in Putin's wheelhouse to do something like that, but I don't think that's what it was. I think terrorist organizations tend to do fucking crazy ass shit, and for no reason at all sometimes.
So. They're just they just, and especially ISIS. ISIS is just wants to kill. ISIS's thing is that they just want to kill all non-Muslims everywhere. So I mean, it's not exactly
they just want to be a fly in the ointment, and they know Russia's having a hard time with things, and they just hey, we can make this harder. Let's go make it harder.
No strategic imperative for Ukraine to go in and just start killing Russian civilians. That doesn't help Ukraine at all.
It doesn't.
Speaking of Hamas, so big news: the UN resolution for an immediate Gaza ceasefire passed today. This morning, U.S. abstained but did not veto. The U.S. has been the one vetoing these resolutions for the past few months. We had our own ceasefire resolution over the weekend that Russia and China vetoed. We'll get into that a little bit in a minute. But the U.S. did not veto this one, so it passed. It passed, I think unanimously, with just the U.S. abstaining from a vote. Bibi is furious, Cathy. He is absolutely livid that the immediate Gaza ceasefire resolution passed the UN with calls to release hostages, which is what the U.S. wanted. It didn't explicitly condemn Hamas for the October 7th attacks, which is the stated reason why U.S. just abstained and didn't vote for it. But we did not veto it. And Bibi is furious that the U.S. did not veto it. He has canceled the trip. He's canceled the delegation from Israel to the United States. I think it was supposed to happen next month. So thoughts on this? So definitely the right thing to do to finally get this. Not that it's a binding resolution. It's going to have any kind of effect on Israel whatsoever. But definitely the right, just for American standing in the world to finally be to finally stop vetoing these damn ceasefire resolutions. But at the same time, it's also, basically we just killed our influence over Benjamin Netanyahu. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm pretty sure our influence over Benjamin Netanyahu was cooked anyway. The reason we'd been vetoing the ceasefires was because we were trying to use what influence we had over him.
Right.
But when his negotiating position is I win or else, like I said, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about this. That's not a position you can work with. My way or no way is not a negotiating position. And like we said, Benny Gantz was here in DC, or it was in DC meeting with the Biden administration. He was in Canada meeting with Justin Trudeau.
Right.
To me, that is allies getting behind a potential replacement. This is the loudest possible message they can send to Bibi. If you're not going to work with us, then we're not going to help you anymore. He's canceled his trip probably because he knows being out of the country. He knows America well enough to know that if you're the leader of a country and you leave that country when your other friends are talking to your enemy, he's going to stay there so they can't coup him, because I'm pretty sure they had a coup lined up. We're good at those. We're good at those covert coups. So that's what I think he's going to try and power grab and hold on to power domestically, but I think he's going to lose it anyway. You can say that we lost our control over Bibi, but I think Bibi just lost an American ally, and I think that's as bad for him, right? And at the beginning of this is we didn't turn on Benjamin Netanyahu at first because we don't want to lose our ally in Israel. But I think, and this is where Joe Biden does not get the credit he deserves for his foreign policy, because what he may have pulled off, and we don't know yet, it's still tentative, it's still floating around, but he may have found out a way to maintain the American alliance with Israel and break up with Benjamin Netanyahu, which Obama
Yeah.
tried 8 years to do that and couldn't do it. So fucking kudo, and he pulled it off in
Well,
6 months. Like if you think about it, 6 months he's pulled that off.
well, it is
So
politically damaging for Benjamin Netanyahu to basically have lost the faith of the United States. I mean, they have other allies, but I mean, the United States is definitely their biggest benefactor and supporter. So yeah, it
yeah, but
doesn't look
their
good.
allies are also our allies. So if we
Right.
back away from them,
Yeah.
it gives everybody else permission to back away from them. And everybody wanted to before we did. So once we
Yeah.
do, they're that now Bibi's a man alone committing atrocious acts that everybody around him hates. He is alone, which is a dangerous place to leave a wannabe fascist dictator, right? But also, we've already arranged
Well,
a replacement,
again,
apparently.
that's the thing is like, okay, so what's better? I mean, what's better for geopolitics to have this guy, in our sphere of influence, keep your enemies
Mhm,
closest kind of thing, or to just say fuck you. The political thing to do, the right, the optics thing to do was what they did, which is,
mhm,
let's stop vetoing the ceasefire resolutions. Let's get on board with the rest of the world and condemning what's going on there. But now he's isolated. I mean, he's
mhm,
if the more we isolate him, the more dangerous he's going to become because the only voices that he listens to are the hard right in his party. I mean, he and Biden famously don't get along, but at least there was an open line of communication there. But I think you're right. I think
mhm,
this is worse for them than it is for us. I mean, their other major allies are Germany and the UK. Germany and UK are not going to like keep supporting Israel if we're out.
mhm.
I think India is another one. Who knows what else? Who knows what India is going to do? But yeah,
You
so
never know what
it's
India's gonna do, to be fair.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah,
interesting though.
I think it's bad
Yeah.
news for Bibi, and let's just say I'm going to keep my finger on the pulse of Israeli politics for the next 10
Oh
days or
yeah,
so,
yeah.
because by the time we do our next show, I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't a huge shakeup in Israeli politics because woof, this big news.
I hope so. I really hope so. He's
Just
not
for the plot, if
popular.
nothing else, you know?
If they called elections today, Netanyahu would not win, and
No, he
he's
wouldn't.
not popular with the Israeli people. They've had it with him. Even the like,
Mhm,
even the like hardcore, don't give a fuck about Palestinian people,
mhm.
in the United States are kind of like, okay, BB's kind of gone too far on this. But yeah, yeah, it's so anyway. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm happy that we finally didn't veto it again. Maybe not the
Mhm,
best like geopolitics move, but certainly the best move for optics.
mhm,
We had drafted a resolution this weekend that called for an immediate surrender, or not immediate surrender, an immediate ceasefire, tied to hostage release, tied to international condemnation of Hamas. Every other country, with the exception of I think Guyana, every other
mhm.
country in the Security Council voted for the U.S. resolution. So it's not like it was a shitty resolution. But China and Russia both exercised their veto power and killed our
Mhm.
ceasefire resolution. So,
Yeah, and the
um,
fact that they're together on something should start like, I wish people would remind themselves of the China Russia being too close for comfort issue, but
yeah,
that's just me.
yeah. And let's not pretend for a second that like China and Russia give a rat's ass about the Palestinians.
They do not.
Russia's basically making money off of this conflict. They're selling arms to Iran, who's selling arms to Hamas. They have every intention of letting this conflict go for as long as possible.
Especially considering how cash strapped they are, because
Yeah,
nobody's allowed to do business with Russia right now.
yeah, exactly. China's going to do what they're going to do. They just like to see the U.S. fail at something. But
Well, we're
yeah,
trying to get like we're holding like America's, market share over their head, like, we're gonna ban TikTok if you don't knock it off.
yeah,
So
they vetoed our resolution because we're threatening to ban TikTok. That's kind of funny.
Honestly, it might be because they know, like, everyone's like, "Oh, they're not going to," but yes, they will, because like, China is not going to sacrifice the American consumer to make a point,
Right.
especially when they can get our data if they need it some other way. Like, just buy it from Facebook, right? Like, it's fine.
Yeah. Everybody on the left was all like, the fucking U.S. ceasefire resolution doesn't go far enough. It says it's imperative that we have a ceasefire, not that we demand a ceasefire. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's just,
It's just
it's
splitting
like,
hairs for the sake of being mad. Like, there are
the,
real things to be mad at, and that is not it. Like,
well, and again, every other nation voted for the U.S.
mhm.
resolution. So it's not like it was an ass resolution that didn't mean anything.
Yeah, like you don't always get your way. Like getting everything you want all the time is tyranny, right? Like you're saying, "Oh, I want a government that cares about people, but I want it to do everything I want no matter what." That's not the same thing. You can't say that you don't want a tyrannical government, but then you want your government to do everything you want regardless of compromise. Like that compromise is necessary for non-tyrannical governments.
And again, a UN ceasefire resolution does not actually have the power to stop Israel from attack. If anything, it makes them more isolated and more dangerous. But the balls on Netanyahu, the audacity of that guy to just he knew we were just his puppet at the or he thought we were just his puppet at the UN. Like our job was to go in and just veto anytime that anybody wanted to come after Israel, in the court of public opinion, it was going to be the responsibility of the United States to slap them down and protect our little baby, that our little child Israel that we're so fond of. And they're fucking furious. They canceled their trip. They're not coming. They're essentially the beginnings of severing diplomatic relations with the United States because we didn't even vote for the resolution. We abstained, but we didn't veto it. He's just furious that we didn't exercise our veto power. So.
This actually reminds me, because remember last week we were talking about how Schumer was going to let Bibi come and address Congress and how much of a big deal it was. And we were like, why is he letting it happen? Maybe he knew this was coming. So it could look like, you know what? I'm not going to put Democrats at risk of trying we're just getting in the way of something, right? Like, fine, GOP, invite him. And now he's the one that canceled because we want him to stop killing civilians.
I'm so glad he's not coming. That was going to be so fucking awkward to have him addressing Congress.
Oh, yeah, it's one way to solve a problem. Maybe so Biden's like, I don't want addressing Congress, so fuck you. We're not voting against the ceasefire this time. That'll do it.
Yeah,
because you said Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden, right? We're on different pages. Like Biden was unhappy about it, so that could also be it, right? Biden's like, you know what? I'll figure out how to do this. I know how Congress works.
I think Biden has absolutely had it with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Oh,
I think he's like, fuck it, I don't give a shit. Like I don't care about AIPAC. I don't care about all the money from donors. Like this is we're done. Like we're done with this.
Yeah. So yay, we stopped supporting fascism. Woo! So now
at least for now.
Fascism. Yeah, I was gonna say now. Next up, our own fascism.
Yeah. Crazy. Crazy stuff. Still waiting to see. Nice. Still waiting to see how Israel's going to respond to the Palestinians in Rafah and what that will do to further sour relations. Because Biden has pretty much said, don't attack Rafah. And, Netanyahu's certainly going to do it now. So now that we've gone through that door where we're no longer protecting them on the world stage, we'll see.
Well, it's a bigger deal, right? Because not only are we not protecting them, but we're all on board. Like a ceasefire has passed the UN Security Council. And if he escalates tensions thereafter, that's not going to look good for him. And that's going to, like you said, further isolate him and put him at risk of losing what power he does have within his own country. Because the people of Israel and the other members of the Israeli government probably see being isolated in that way differently than psycho, I just want to murder everybody, Bibi, right? Like cooler heads will prevail, I would like to think, in the Israeli parliament.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, hopefully. Again, that's why it was the right move, because it does isolate him. Because now that now when things get really, really bad, he's on his own. Officially becoming a bad actor at that point. Not that he isn't already.
I was going to say I would put him there already, but to be diplomatic.
Speaking of bad actors, so our government is funded through the fall. We managed to squeak out finally after like a year and a half. We managed to squeak out an actual government funding bill. Only funds to the end of the federal fiscal year, which is the end of September. So great!
One hell of an October surprise. A government shutdown.
Yeah, shut down the government. So yeah, they managed to do it. Mike Johnson's Congress managed to actually get funding done for the next couple of months as a reward for working with Democrats. Marjorie Taylor Green has filed a motion to vacate against Speaker Mike Johnson because the rule is still in place that a single member of the House can make a motion to remove the speaker. So that is now been filed. She hasn't actually called for a vote for that yet. She's just essentially like, there's a process for that. She filed the paperwork, but to actually trigger it, she'd have to get up to the podium and call for a vote. So basically right now she's just kind of holding it over her head, over Johnson's head. Several Dems has, and again, reminder of everybody on the math, if everybody, Johnson could be in serious trouble if every Democrat voted against his speakership, which is what happened with Kevin McCarthy, because there aren't a ton of Republicans. You would only need a couple of Republicans to vote against him too, and he'd be out. Democrats are signaling that enough is enough with this. We're willing to work with Mike Johnson, especially if Marjorie Taylor Green is going to be the one bringing forward this motion to vacate. They are not going to. Several Democrats have signaled that they're not going to let Marjorie Taylor Green dictate the business of the House. So you will probably see a split this time in the Democrats. Enough Democrats will vote to save Mike Johnson's job, just so we don't have to go through this crap anymore. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think this is so funny that, because what is the majority down to now? Because
that's the other thing is,
yeah,
so that's the other thing is that Ken Buck has quit early. Mike Gallagher quit early. Both these guys said they wouldn't be running again, but now they all up and left. So the GOP has dropped below 218 seats. They're at 217 seats. They currently, as it stands, they can only lose, if all Democrats vote together, the GOP can only lose one vote. So that's as tight as it gets.
I think this is so funny. So like, in theory, what could happen? And like, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. Like, let's say a single Republican has to miss Congress, like they go home, they get sick, right? Like, and then Marjorie Taylor Green, the fucking idiot that she is, has filed her motion to vacate, and then so-and-so can't make it in for the vote that day, and you have a Democratic Speaker of the House. It would probably only last 15 minutes because they'd vacate him again immediately. But like that, like, it shows the dysfunction in the party. This is the slow bleed of the Republican Party. And it's interesting, all of this together. Okay, I'll put my temporary tinfoil. It's not really tinfoil hatty, but you know what I mean. So like, the first time they did this, Democrats voted against Kevin McCarthy because he was a dick to them. They could have saved him then, but like, you're going to throw us under the bus. Fine. Fuck you.
He threw him under the bus. He could have negotiated with Democrats to save his job. He didn't do it. So yeah.
Right. And he didn't do it. So like, fine, we're going to let you, this is your bed. You made it. That's your thing, Kevin. But they're in a position right now where they get to be the grownups in the room, and they get to, because now we're in campaign season. Now the election is going. So they have managed to, because I think more Democrats voted for this budget than Republicans, right? So it was Democrats reaching across the aisle to work with Republicans to get a budget through because Republican leadership couldn't corral their own caucus, right? It's Democrats coming to the aid of Republicans because the fractures in their own caucus are threatening their speaker. So it's Democrats holding the House together. Fractured caucus. It's Democrats holding the House together. It's Democrats funding the government. It's Democrats ending the dysfunction within the Republican Party. Who are the grownups in the room right now? Democrats. Who do you want in charge of your country? Like, they're setting this up perfectly, especially if they can't come to another, but if we get to October 1st facing a government shutdown, if the October surprise is a government shutdown, and if it's Donald Trump pushing the Republicans to let the government shut down in the lead up to an election. Say you're one of the 400,000 plus federal employees that has your paycheck stopped the week before the presidential election because Republicans can't get their shit together. The margins in some of these states are small enough that a few federal employees not getting their paycheck, a few senior citizens not getting their Medicare, Republicans are so good right now at fucking themselves over. It's like they're the Democrats of the 90s.
Yeah, it's really, really, it does not look good for the Republicans at all right now. Interesting thing on Gallagher and Buck. So Gallagher was a rep from Wisconsin. The Wisconsin rules say that in an election year, if you leave Congress prior to the second Tuesday in April, an immediate special election will be held to fill your seat. Gallagher timed it so that he missed that deadline. He didn't have to miss that deadline. He intentionally missed that deadline. And because he did, his seat will remain empty until the November general election. So they will not be able to just rush another Republican into that seat until November, which means his seats, they can't just replace that Republican. So Marjorie Taylor Green was so pissed about this, she's actually calling for Gallagher to be expelled from Congress prior to the second Tuesday in April so that they could hold an election to fill his seat. But wow, did he just like snake his own fucking party by doing that? So, interesting. It's there's a whole group of like mainstream, like old school Republicans that are so pissed off at MAGA that they're willing to they're literally like the Buck Gallagher types are literally just trying to sabotage the Republican majority because they're so pissed off about it.
That's what I was saying. Like, what I love about this so much is it's the death of the Republican Party, but it's Brutus stabbing Caesar. It is 100% them. They're taking themselves out right now, and it's hilarious to me that it's so incredibly clear that Republicans are destroying Republicans, not just like the toxic Republicans that are creating the environment for this, but like you said, those old school Republicans that are just so fucking done. It's like they're willing to kill the party to kill this element of the party. And as much as I hate Ken Buck and Mike Gallagher, like I agree with them on literally nothing except this specific thing.
Yeah,
there's something to be said for their, I guess patriotism might be the word there, because this is country.
It's the Liz Cheney phenomenon. You know what I mean? Like we were never going to agree with Liz Cheney on anything. All of a sudden, she's like a hero.
I wouldn't go that far. I am very glad that she is willing to put her country over her party, but everything else she stands for is gross. There is literally one thing in the universe I agree with Liz Cheney on, unless purple is her favorite color, then it's two. Okay. But like that is it.
It probably is
that Donald Trump is a criminal and the Republican Party is broken. That is where we meet, and that is where we depart.
They are institutionalist Republicans. Ron Filipkowski talks about this all the time. Like the traditional Republican conservative is an institutionalist. They're not interested in disbanding the FBI. They're not interested in tearing down all these institutions, tearing down government. Overthrowing democracy. That's not what traditional conservatives are. And they can be pretty. You can be pretty far to the right, like Liz Cheney and Ken Buck, and still think that Donald Trump is completely full of shit.
Yeah, like they're assholes, but they're not like anarchists.
Yeah.
Like so,
it's interesting. Yeah, party. Putting a country before party is pretty. Pretty. It's rare these days.
It's about fucking time, is what it is.
But the thing is, here's where it gets really interesting. Now you mentioned, somebody gets with that one vote majority, somebody gets sick, and we get, we stage a coup and put Hakeem Jeffries in as Speaker in the House. But Ken Buck, when he left, he told Dana Bash at CNN that he knew of at least 3 other Republicans that were thinking of leaving. Now Gallagher left shortly after, so that's one. So there could potentially be 2 other Republicans that are about to spring up and just quit, which would essentially give the Democrats, if those people leave, if they time it the way that Gallagher timed it, they would hand the Democrats the majority in the House in an election year. So that would be that has never happened before. That would be unbelievable if majority switched just off of people leaving midterm.
Would be a game changer, because all of the policies that the Biden administration has wanted to push through but hasn't been able to push through because they lacked the majority in the House, it can just be like, look what we're starting right now with a single seat majority in the House. Watch what we do. It like expands this majority and we'll get the rest of the way there. If it goes through the House and stalls in the Senate because of like one vote, be like, send me who I need. Like the election is literally 6 months down the road. The legislation is right here. Give me the Congress I need to. It makes it so fucking perfect. It makes it so fucking perfect. And part of me wonders if that isn't why these guys are doing it, right? Because they tried so hard to get any other candidate at the top of the ticket, and Donald Trump still took it over. Like he's taken over the party. He's using all of their fundraising dollars for his legal bills and his freaking settlements. That's going to cost them the Senate. Like you can look at the polling, you can look at everything you want, but money wins elections. And we've known that for decades. And the Republican Party's money, all of it, is going to Donald Trump. So if you have a close Senate race in, like, where's there a close Senate race this year? I think North Carolina, I think they have a Senate, like, and that's a swing state these days.
Yeah.
Again, and so is Georgia. And I don't think they have a seat up. I don't think they do, but
Arizona. Yeah.
Arizona, right? So all of these states where there are going to be close Senate races, if all of that money is going to E. Jean Carroll, right? Because then, like, I swear this could get like,
Yeah.
there's a lot to be worried about in this election, but there's also a lot to be like, the political science nerd in my brain is like excited to see, because it's one of those shake up moments in politics when like the polling looks weird, the polling looks bad, the young voters are getting discouraged, Hispanic voters have kind of like, they're not quite the block of Democratic support that they
Right.
were for various reasons. And those are really concerning things if they continue on that trend. Like, it's bad news for Democrats long term, unless, right? Like, there's a
Yeah.
window here where the Democratic Party could form, and like that Obama coalition that just never really like fused together, might finally fuse here if we manage to push through some big bills, because the Republicans
Yeah.
have fallen apart. Like, they basically drooled on themselves enough to give old man Joe just the room he needed,
Yeah, and to be fair, like, we still wouldn't be able to do much in the Senate with the filibuster, but,
Right.
look, the Senate Republicans are more than willing to pass Ukraine aid. They're more than willing to, they're more than willing to get a deal done on the border. They're more than willing to work with, Biden on, the fucking infrastructure stuff and all that. So,
You know
if we
what?
take,
That's probably it. It's the Ukraine aid that's making them do it.
yeah,
It
yeah,
just popped in my head because Mitch McConnell, especially, like, he like, there are people, like you said, who know Russia is dangerous and that Russia cannot
oh
take,
yeah,
like, they know how bad that would be. And they know it's the House standing in the way. So this might, like, what if Mitch McConnell convinced them to do this? Like, what if his last act as, like, the Death Eater that he is in the Senate was to arrange a way to give the House to Democrats so they could pass Ukraine aid just to save the world from Vladimir Putin if he can't save America from Donald Trump? Like, oh my God, what if this is his like deathbed, like confession,
this is
like
his,
convert to
this is his
Catholicism on
Snape,
his deathbed thing? Yeah.
this is his Snape moment. Take
Always,
my
Lily,
tears to the
always,
Palantir. Take them,
always.
watch. Always. Yeah. No, it's
I
I
enjoyed
don't
that story.
okay, well here's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I don't even necessarily know that you need Mitch McConnell. I think people like Ken
Mhm.
Buck, who's plugged in. He's one of the most senior members of
Yeah.
Congress because he's
Yeah,
been there forever.
exactly.
What if he found out something about some of these people, like Marjorie Taylor Green? What if he found out that Marjorie Taylor Green's working for the Russians, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to get this fucking Ukraine." The only
Mhm.
basically the House of Representatives has been taken over by Russian assets.
Mhm.
We've got to get this Ukraine aid passed. Like
Mhm.
fuck it, lose the majority, kill the majority, everybody just drop out. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So
Which, like, that's the only way that I would respect any of the, like, any remaining Republicans that would do it.
yeah,
I would respect you for that, because that is, again, country over party, and
yeah.
good for you.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Oh, by the way, Ken Buck also signed the Democratic discharge petition for Ukraine aid on his way out the door. He's like, "Fuck you," signed the
yeah.
Democratic discharge petition. So yeah, so Mike Johnson is sitting on the Ukraine aid. He won't even assign it to committee, but House members can force the speaker
Mhm.
to move a bill forward with 218 signatures on a discharge petition. Democrats had a discharge petition with 187 signatures, and Ken Buck was the only Republican now that signed it. It's 188 signatures now. So
Yeah, that, like, I annoyed with myself that it didn't occur to me earlier that that's why he was doing it, but 100% I bet that's it.
yeah,
This is, oh, man.
yeah.
This is fun. Politics is about to get so fucking interesting again. Like, it's always good when politics is interesting, and it's been interesting for years, but in a terrifying way. But
It's
now,
terrifying, interesting, not like just like ooh, this is fun.
yeah, well, it might be fun again, right? Like to watch this. Like, let's say it plays out the way we're saying it is, and this is Republicans taking down their own party for the sake of the world, right? That's
Yeah.
fun politics to watch. Like, that means that we don't have to be terrified anymore, because it turns out at the end of the day, America was more important than Donald Trump. Thank fucking Christ.
Just a quick correction. I think I said Palantir, which is Lord of the Rings. Not it should be Pensief, which is Harry Potter. Nerds don't come after me. So just
I was
a
gonna say,
quick
I
clarification.
like that. That's the correction we make sure to get. Like,
This show has never issued a retraction on anything wrong that we've ever said, but I just want to
And
make
we
sure
get
that we
shit
get that
wrong
right.
sometimes. Don't pretend we don't. I'll own it. Like there are sometimes I'm talking too fast and I just say the wrong word, and
Yeah,
everyone's trying to keep up with listening to me, and they don't notice either. It's fine. I'm not perfect. I admit my
I said the
shortcomings.
wrong word a couple of times on the show, but
Yeah.
we will issue a retraction on when it comes to nerdy stuff.
But only for Harry Potter, apparently.
But yeah, this is all very, very interesting. We're talking conspiracy theories that we absolutely believe. I mean, nobody, the greatest thing in the world would be for this Ukraine aid to never pass. And the Senate Republicans are more than willing to pass that fucking Ukraine aid. It's literally just a few people in the House that are holding it up.
Wait, you said to never pass? I think you misspoke. I'm going to make sure we retract this one. You said the best thing in the world would be for it to not pass, or for
Russia. Did I not say for Russia?
Oh,
yeah, see, that's an example of me not including a crucial detail.
An important one on that one. Yep.
The best thing in the world for Russia would be for us not to pass this Ukraine aid. So.
Yes, important distinction there. I'm glad I caught that one because woof.
Yeah.
I feel like we'd have been explaining things to the CIA. Like, no, sorry, sir. One of my kids was wearing a CIA sweatshirt today, and I was like, "What?" And they just laughed. I was like, "All right, fine." Whatever.
Culinary Institute of America, probably.
It was 100%, but I was joking about it. I was like, "I got a psyop in my class today, kids."
I feel like they could probably change the name of that cooking school. That's
one would think, but it's fine. There's Christian University of Michigan, which is my favorite.
The other thing on this was that after the passing the funding and MTG filing the motion to expel Johnson as speaker, George Santos said that the GOP is too embarrassing. He's too embarrassed to be affiliated with the Republican Party. So he's leaving the Republican Party and he will be running again for Congress as an independent. So when you have shamed George Santos.
I know. Oh my God. For the shameless of the shameless to be too ashamed of you. Mister, I stole from a dog charity.
Yeah. Somebody passed the George rule, which when Santos showed up to the State of the Union, because as a former member, he has lifetime right to just show up to the House. Mm-hmm. Somebody passed or was trying to pass a rule that like expelled members of Congress can't come back, and it was called the George rule, but it stood for something I can't remember. I have to look it up.
It's probably a good rule that if you get kicked out of your job, like if you get fired from your job, you're escorted off the grounds, right?
Right. So it's really fucking weird that he got to just like come back.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird. But
yeah, Lara Trump is the head of the RNC, and she has given all RNC money to Donald Trump. It's not even really about the Senate. It's about like what are all those like fucking down ballot races, all those all the Republicans in the state level and all that struggling, and now all their money is going to go to Eugene as well. So.
I know,
because of Lara Trump.
I know, Eugene Tower, man. That's what's going to happen.
By the way, this is not on the outline, but the story we covered last time of the Alex Stein show and kicking the baby around, he actually issued a formal apology. And he apologized not only for doing that, but for making Lara Trump look bad. I think, like I said on the show, the Blaze is trying to position themselves as more mainstream. I think probably his bosses got to him and told him he needed to fucking apologize for doing that.
Well, it was just fucking weird is what it was. I was like listening to the show and I was like, you know what? I remember watching this and I was very glad that like the people who just listened to the show couldn't see what was happening because it was so fucking disturbing. Like this guy is so fucking weird. Like, I don't know what makes a person, like what happens in your life that makes you that person.
So Lara Trump taking over the RNC from Ronna McDaniel, who resigned as RNC chair. Ronna McDaniel is now a paid NBC contributor.
Yeah, that's Cathy, weird. I don't know how I feel about that one.
Ridiculous. Tons of uproar about that. She was going to be doing both MSNBC and just regular like primetime NBC, network NBC. The outcry about her coming on MSNBC was so loud that they have canceled all that. She will not be coming on MSNBC, but she still will be a contributor on network NBC. She was on Meet the Press. Chuck Todd was talking to Kristen Walker about it. And you know something, Cathy? Chuck Todd is the most vanilla, like uninspiring journalist of all time. And just terrible, he ended up being an awful replacement for Tim Russert. But occasionally the man does show up to work. Listen to what he said about Ronna McDaniel coming on NBC.
What were your takeaways?
Look, let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job.
He's about to cry. This must have been hard for him.
So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for, right? I think you did everything you could do. You got put into an impossible situation, booking this interview, and then all of a sudden the rugs pull out from under you. You find out she's being paid to show up. It's unfortunate for this program, but I am glad you did the best that you could, and that's why the three of us are on here to try to bolster that editorial independence.
So good on old Chucky Todd.
I like the actual journalists dig that he had in there. Really, like, have her vetted by actual journalists. Like, that was funny to me. I liked that one. Yeah, I just woof.
So
he's not wrong. Yeah, but
no, he's not wrong at all. It's disgraceful that they would bring. Like, she helmed the RNC through the Trump years, through election denialism, 2020, January 6th. She was an apologist for all that. She's a Trump loyalist. She's MAGA to the core. The only reason she was forced out is because Republicans can't win an election in the Trump era, and they were looking for someone to blame rather than blaming Donald Trump. They blamed her. But to give her a role as a serious, like in a serious, like he said, like if she wants to be like a reporter at the convention, fine. But to make her a paid contributor to NBC News is pretty disgusting.
Yeah. My curiosity is like the point he made about like you hire somebody like this for access. What if they like trying to like the way, what's the girl you like on Fox's name? I can't remember her name. Jessica
Tarlov.
Yeah. Like, what if they were trying to,
Tarlov?
Because she doesn't appeal to me in quite the same way, Troy. So, it's gorgeous. Easier for me. I have like 200 names in my head at any given point in time. She's pretty, but I think Jen Psaki's prettier. So I understand that little love affair a little bit more. I'm so torn. Me, partial to the redheads, whatever. We're the best. But I would be curious as to whether they were trying to, because of the fake news media nonsense that kind of goes out there. And I wonder if maybe MSNBC was trying to garner some credibility to potential, like, people, that crowd of people willing to not vote for Donald Trump, but still could potentially vote for him. Like the crowd, like the Haley voters, essentially, right? Yeah. Like, what if they're trying to bring that voice onto the network to try to win over some of those people? They should have been clearer about it if that was their goal. They could have picked perhaps Liz Cheney, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Maybe
Somebody.
she wouldn't have been as effective because she's not so deep in it. But like he's like
I think
this
she would have been
woman got
incredibly
rid of.
effective. Ronnie
I think
McDonald's
so
not even
too.
intelligent. Like,
And that's the thing. Like, this is this like remember she was originally Ronna Romney McDaniel, but the
yeah,
Romney upset like Donnie so much that this woman is so feckless. She changed her name because it made Donald Trump sad.
because it made
Like, I'm
Donald Trump
sorry.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
I can't take anybody seriously that's like, oh, I will change my identity to support this crazy man. No, I'm sorry. I ended an engagement to keep my name, and that bitch gave it away for Donnie's.
Check it out on Patreon. The story of Cathy's engagements.
I hate you all. I hate you all.
There's, and, you know, and NBC, it has been a successful landing spot for the never Trump Republicans, like Michael Steele, and some of these other people. You know, they've done a really good job. What's the name of that other woman?
Nicole Wallace, I think.
Nicole Wallace is the biggest one, right? Like she was like George W. Bush's comms director or whatever. So they've created a really soft. They've created a really soft like landing spot for credible Republicans who want to come on and talk about how horrible Trump has been for the party. But that's not Ronna McDaniel, man. Ronna McDaniel has never repented. You know, she's still firmly MAGA. She's out of the job like 2 months, man. Like not enough time has passed. Like even if you gave her some time, but she is still like fresh MAGA, you know, fresh disgusting MAGA.
It's an interesting choice without a doubt. So yeah.
But anyway, good on Chuck Todd for hitting up that. That must have been really hard for him to say, like, to Kristen Welker's face on Meet the Press. So let's go to your story. So boomers fleeing Florida. So where are we at here with the Florida? Let's give us a Florida update, Cathy.
Ooh,
how's it going down there in the Sunshine State?
Fun. Meh, it's going. Everything's covered in a dust of pollen because spring has sprung, even though summer never stopped. So whatever. But Florida is fucked up, as we all know, but it's fucked up in a lot of very specific ways that are costing retirees money they don't have. Like retirees generally like plan and end up living on fixed incomes. That's kind of the idea. Part of the reason that Florida is so appealing to retired populations is the lack of an income tax. Okay. So that is what has brought people here for a very long time. But not having an income tax doesn't matter so much when your homeowner's insurance is a mortgage payment.
That's how they get you.
And that's how they get you, right? And I think a lot of older people, and there's an article, and I linked it on the outline for us. It's from the Business Insider that came out yesterday. And the headline is, Boomers fed up with Florida are moving to Southern Appalachia, fueling a population spike in longtime rural communities. This is fucking crazy to me, okay?
Wow,
because
that is pretty interesting.
Well, because where they're going, when they say Southern Appalachia, I feel like everyone's gonna. I'm trying to go back to North Carolina in my brain because they taught me how to say it properly because I'm British and I don't really know. So I don't know.
Appalachia.
Appalachia. That's how you say it, right?
Okay, yeah, I think it's Appalachia. Yeah,
Appalachia. Just making sure because I got yelled at a lot, and I do that thing in my head where I'm like, am I saying it right or wrong? And I'll say it wrong because I think the right way is whatever. I'm stupid. But the states that are most being impacted by people leaving Florida, so they're leaving Northeast Florida, which is like the Jacksonville, Duval area, and Midwest Florida, which is like probably like Orlando, Orange County, like Lakeland, like the Central Florida area, or probably a little bit west, but whatever. There's where they're saying the populations are going from, and moving into Southwest Georgia, which explains a little bit why, or Southwest Virginia, North Georgia, and North and South Carolina, with a little bit of Alabama and Tennessee. Okay, so if you think about these states, Virginia had gotten increasingly blue, right? Georgia has become a swing state. North Carolina, remember, like it looks like they're a Looney Tunes state right now, but they do have a Democratic governor, and the guy running for governor from the Republican Party probably won't win. He's running on
Obama, and
they did, and like in
North Carolina is not South Carolina. Like North Carolina is way
right, yeah, like North Carolina went for Obama in 2008, but Romney in 2012. So it's like it's a swing state, right? But remember, Florida went for Obama twice and then went for Donald Trump twice. So like swing states are weird in that way. But Georgia has become a swing state. Virginia, I think might be moving into solid blue. North Carolina has now returned to swing state territory. South Carolina, I don't think there's not a whole lot you can do for South Carolina.
South Carolina is redder.
But Alabama and Tennessee are interesting too, because there are pockets of liberalism in both of those states that just don't get anywhere because they're just so condensed. And if these people are fleeing Florida, you can probably assume that they're fleeing Florida in part because of the insurance crisis and in part because of just the insanity of the politics, right? They just don't want to be here. Totally. Meaning that it's bad news for me because it would be blue voters leaving Florida, but it's good news for America if blue voters are moving into rural areas, because rural areas aren't very populated anyway. And 200 people showing up in rural Georgia can swing a rural Georgia district.
That's really interesting to me. Do you have any insight as to why they would choose like rural? Like, why wouldn't they just move? Like,
cost of living.
Maybe they go to Mobile, Alabama or something, go see Irini.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Like, but it's cost of living, because if you move to Atlanta, you're not saving any money, and then you're paying an income tax, whatever, for the same housing costs, right? You're saving on your homeowner's insurance, but the property or the income tax, it'll be a wash. There's no point in moving. But if you move to rural Georgia, you're getting a lot of land for a little bit of money. Because remember, like John and Irene, when they were both in Tennessee, they tell us like how cheap their apartments are in Appalachia, right? Like you can live cheap in rural Appalachia.
It was like $400 for like a 2-bedroom apartment,
right? And if you're in Northeast Florida, like the weather difference between South Georgia and North Florida is not big. And if you just hop the border and you save $800 a month in homeowners insurance, right?
So it's just an easy move to save money.
It's an easy move. The weather's the same. You'll save your insurance issues. You escape the toxic political climate, and with enough of you to potentially sway a local district. Because like some rural communities only have like populations of 2,000 people, right? And like, I'm just saying, it could start shaking up the political landscape in some really interesting ways, depending on where they're going. And I read this article, I read it on my lunch break, right? But the population of Southern Appalachian counties that have retirement or recreational areas grew by 3.8% between April 2020 and July 2022, a rate significantly higher than the national average. Like, that is wild. Like it says here, Dawson County, Georgia, where the county seat of Dawsonville is about 60 miles north of Atlanta. The population swelled from 27,000 people in 2020 to 32,000 people in 2023.
Wow. Those are numbers that would change an election.
Yep. And it is. And because of that, because if you've come to Florida to retire, you're probably a wealthy older boomer, right? Like, let's be real. And that is increasing the income levels of those regions as well. So incomes have risen in those similar areas, like retirement and recreational communities in Southern Appalachia, from $10,095 in 2018, or by like $10,000. So incomes have increased by about $10,000. So they're bringing more money into the area. They're bringing new ideas into the area with populations that could potentially swing districts, and like increasing the political power of some of these other states. And I just got a news alert that Diddy's house just got raided by National or Homeland Security. So I'm going to have to dig into that one later. Yeah. I'm like, I don't have time for it now, but just be aware that happened. So
didn't Dwayne Wade leave Florida because of,
Yep. Because of the talks. Yep. Exactly. And that like upset a lot of people, because he's a big deal in Florida.
Miami.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and statewide, like he's kind of adored. Like he's an amazing person as well as an amazing athlete, you know? So, but the reason stated, our property insurance was going sky high. He said of Florida living, we got tired of being unable to find a place to sit in restaurants. We wouldn't go back for anything, he added.
Who was that? Was that Wade?
No. This is just I went back to my article. Sorry. Like the guy they were interviewing here.
Yeah. No. That happened. I don't know really the numbers, but that is a big reason why Nevada and Arizona are trending blue, because people from California are looking for cheaper places to live. And the people on the right are saying that it's some conspiracy or something, but no, it's kind of the similar thing. Like you can, if you're living in Sacramento, California, you're paying out the ass. You can move, 80 miles to, Carson City, Nevada, get a really cheap place, good schools, whatever. But you're bringing that politics with you. You're flipping, you're flipping Carson City. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. So especially as like more places have hybrid work models, that allows people to move into different areas.
That's the name of the game. Is now people can live wherever they want. Like people are choosing where they live. They're not forced to live somewhere because of their work.
Yep, and that will change the dynamic because part of the narrative, and you hear this with Republicans all the time, they look at the map, they're like, look how red it is. Where are all the Democrats? I'm like, all the Democrats are where all the people live is the problem. But that's because of urbanization, right? So if we can de-urbanize those areas, then you can take those people out of concentrated areas, pepper them through the country, and it'll start to make more sense why Donald Trump loses elections. Because I still get, like, I was watching a video, I think it was Walt, actually, Masterson's video, or somebody in that lane where they were interviewing somebody about, like, why do you think the election was stolen? And he's like, all the ballots that came in the middle of the night, like, time zones aren't a thing. Like, how did the numbers jump so much? Like, because California's fucking gigantic. It's like, I know they all hate California because they're like, oh, it's just this like 44 million people live in California. Okay, so does California have a lot of sway on an election? Yeah. On a popular vote? Yeah, because there's 44 million people in just California. There are more people in California than the plain states. So like Idaho to Minnesota down to to Oklahoma, because you can't count Texas because like they have a big population. All of those states together don't equal California. It's fucking ridiculous. There are 28 states that collectively don't have California's population.
There's many states that collectively don't have the population of Los Angeles County.
I know. Like Wyoming, they get 3 electoral votes and don't have as many people as one city in one state. It drives me nuts. I'm sorry. I could rage about this forever, as you can tell.
That's like old school for us. We should go back to raging about the Electoral College. That was like a couple of years ago.
You should.
Yeah. Interesting. That's really interesting stuff, Kevin.
Yep. So Florida sucks. Everyone knows it. Even the olds.
Even the old people know it.
Even the olds. Yeah. And then the other story I had up is me being an econ nerd, right? The Federal Reserve is on track to cut interest rates probably this summer, which big good news for Obama. I almost said that. God, it's like I'm Donald Trump right now. For Joe Biden, right? Because that points to that his economic policies are working. The economy is stable. The Federal Reserve wants to increase like the borrowing potential for the American consumer. They're not worried about inflation anymore. That is big news for Joe Biden, and it is bad news for Donald Trump because Donald Trump was hoping to be able to point to high interest rates being Joe Biden's fault. But if the interest rates start coming down because of Joe Biden's policies, he's lost that again.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump's going to be in a position where he either has to acknowledge that the economy is doing better and interest rates should come down, or that he's going to want interest rates higher, which is bad for Mr. I live in debt. So I just think it's going to be an interesting thing, and it's going to happen in the summertime, right? Like when the election, like at probably sometime around the conventions. So if it happens right before the national convention and Joe Biden can go into the DNC convention and talk about the rates coming down, the economy is growing, blah, like that's fantastic news for him. But they said that the controls, the reduction to the benchmark has set at 5.25 to 5.5 since last July. And they're going to pull them down at least a quarter of a point. So they want like 3 reductions throughout the course of the rest of the year by like a 0.5 percentage point at a time. So like if we're at 5.5, like say now, then like by the next quarter, they could pull it down to like 5, right? Which means by October, we're down to 4.5% again. And
buy a house.
And if we're
start
sitting
looking at neighborhoods you like, buy your house in October, folks.
And well, just think if our October surprise is interest rates are back below 5%,
which means, which also means the stock market exploding all summer too. knowing that those
which means
cuts are
the
coming.
stock market will be exploding, which means you'll see people buying homes, like you said, for the first time, and it'll be contrasted with. So come October, it could be Republicans just shut down the government, but Joe Biden lowered your interest rates, which he didn't. And I know that Joe Biden doesn't control interest rates. You know Joe Biden doesn't control interest rates, but Joe America voter does not, and that's what it's going to look like. And this is just all very good news for democracy in general.
I would argue that the president has more control over interest rates than something like gas prices, because they're only going to lower interest rates if the economy is doing well. You know what I mean? Like that's an offshoot of a healthy economy.
Well, yeah, but like my point is that it's not like Joe Biden that says interest rates are 3%, right? And that's that is people's perception of it, and it's a wrong perception, but.
Well, rightly or wrongly, the president's going to get all the
rightly
credit
or wrongly.
and all the blame. So, yeah,
interesting. Sean Combs has been accused of sexual assault and sex trafficking, and his house was raided by Homeland Security.
Wow. Okay, I guess we're talking Diddy next week. We're out of time for this week, but
I was going to say, Diddy. So like that's our cliffhanger.
Stay tuned next week. We're talking about Diddy going to prison. Oh boy, not good.
Oh, mo money, mo problems, baby.
Never liked that guy. Not a good rapper. Yeah,
really wasn't.
From what I hear, not a good guy.
He just exploited the death of his friend to make like 2 songs that were all right.
Yeah,
and the best of the 2 like was written by like Sting.
yeah. Yeah, it didn't do a lot of good for hip hop music in the Diddy era. Anyway,
remember his vote or die thing? Remember how weird that was? Like we had like Rock the Boat was fun. Vote or die was a bit like much.
That was scary. That was really scary.
Like I remember South Park made fun of it. Like, ooh.
That was a good era of South Park for sure.
I know. I miss South Park.
Come out of the closet, Tom. I'm not in here though. How am I talking to you, Tom?
That was such a good episode.
Oh boy. Thanks,
anyway,
Cathy.
On
that note, stay tuned next week for Diddy news, apparently. Cathy, thank you so much for a great conversation. Hey, check us out on Patreon, Patreon. Yes, you check it out. Patreon.com/just you can get access to bonus content not available to the general public, including our much beloved deep dive series where we nerd out on various topics. We will have special guests exclusively on Patreon, pre-show, post-show, shooting the shit, learn some stuff about us, merch, all that kind of extra goodies that the general public doesn't get access to. $5 a month, you can get access to it on Patreon. If you want to watch the video content of the regular show, go to YouTube, Just Buy Less Coffee. And if you're listening to the audio-only versions of the show, make sure you're downloading the episode to your device. Download numbers are how we are ranked with other news and political podcasts. Thank you so much, everybody, for your support. We love all of our subscribers. We love all of our listeners. Probably another cool guest coming next week. I'm going to tease it up. Not confirmed yet, but we are going to be having Coach D on the show sometime, probably next week. Coach D, Midas contributor, big TikTok content creator. Good guy, really, really good guy, friend of mine. So we're excited to have Coach D on the show probably next week. And then check out Cathy's appearance on the Left Wing podcast with TJ Whitehead and John Cooper as well. So thank you, Cathy, for a great conversation, and we will see everybody next time. You've been listening to Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics, featuring Troy Matthews at Keep Troy Blue and Cathy Cannon at Cannon's Fodder. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X. All opinions are our own.